Hello and welcome everyone. This is our very first webinar and I'm really excited to be here with you today. This webinar is titled Gender Equality and SDG 5. I feel that this is a very relevant time for us to be doing such a thing, especially we can see how much things have changed as a result of COVID-19. And I felt that this was a pressing issue that we should be talking about. So I would like to thank JCI Intan for jointly organizing this webinar with us, SERATA. And so let's move on to our the next slide. So what we will be looking at today is, first of all, to determine what exactly is gender equality about. I do find that a lot of people are not really clear what it means to be gender equal, what it means to be gender equal. I have met people who think that gender equality is about men being equal to women, which is not really the case. And next, we'll be looking at gender equality in Malaysia. How is it at the moment? Have we progressed? And especially now when COVID-19 is happening, how has it affected gender equality? And the next item on the agenda would be talking about SDG 5. What is it really about? And after that, I will be opening the floor for Q&A. So you can ask anything or give suggestions on how we can move forward. So what exactly is gender equality? As I mentioned earlier, some people think that what it means is women basically acting like men or men acting like women, doing the same jobs. I have once talked about my work with a couple of people, and one of the people in the group started laughing like, this is 2020. What do you mean we are not gender equal? So there was a lot of explanation I had to do in order to bring him his opinions on why I think that gender equality is something that we have not achieved. And even according to the World Economic Forum, it is going to take us 99 years, almost 100 years to close the gender gap. So if the World Economic Forum is saying that, what about people like, on the ground? So the fact is, we have 7.8 billion people in the world, according to statistics in March 2020. And you can see that the current male population is 50.4%, and the current female population is almost 50% as well. So it's like 50-50. There's almost an equal representation of male and female. So I use the terms male and female because people are not always, their gender does not always reflect the sexual organs that they were born with. So while we notice there's 50% male population and almost 50% female population, is there actual representation, equal representation and rights? I would invite you to look at the number of people in top leadership posts, like in the parliament, let's say, even our state cabinet. You can look at all the people who are who are CEOs of large companies. Are they men or are they women? Is there like equal representation at the moment? And so UNESCO's definition of gender equality is that women and men have equal conditions for realizing their full human rights and for contributing to and benefiting from social, economic, cultural, and political development. So I really like this picture that I posted here because I think this is so true. This is about 3 men and 3 women rushing to the finish line, obviously in advancement of their career. And for the men, their path is just clear, that all they have to do is focus on reaching their destination. As for women, they have, all these household tasks like doing the laundry, doing cleaning, doing cooking, or childcare. And although they want to be able to focus on building their careers, unfortunately, this is the truth, that a lot of women are still expected to be in charge of all these tasks that men are usually not required to do, traditionally in anyway. And yes, so the path between a woman and a man is not the same. So it mentioned in UNESCO that, back again, let me, I think I clicked too fast, but okay. Yes, so women and men have equal conditions for realizing their human rights. So let me introduce to you something called the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, which was drafted and passed in 1948. Surprisingly, this Universal Declaration of Human Rights was actually, the drafting of it was actually led by a woman, also known as Eleanor Roosevelt. So they had made it as gender neutral as possible, like all human beings are born free and equal in dignity and rights. And everyone is entitled to all the rights and freedoms set forth in this declaration without distinction of any kind, such as race, color, sex, language, religion, birth, or other status. And nearly every state in the world has accepted the declaration, including Malaysia. Yeah. So basically, everyone agrees that everyone has the right to have human rights. And human rights in this case also includes things like freedom of expression, the right to have a safe home, a right to be heard, a right to have a right to work, even is in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. But are women guaranteed these human rights? Okay, so in 1979, almost 30 years after, more than 30 years after the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, they had to come up with a convention on the elimination of all forms of discrimination against women. Why is that? Oh, the fact that the first declaration about human rights already said that all humans have these rights, but women are not treated like they are, as on par as men. Suddenly women are a different species. The fact that we have to have this additional rules in addition to the Declaration of Human Rights is a bit sad lah, to say, because that you have to specify things like all the state parties that sign this agreement has to modify or abolish existing laws that discriminate against women, and then state parties have to suppress trafficking of women and exploitation and prostitution. The fact that we have to have a rule that says that women are able to vote as well. If you've ever watched the movie Suffragette, you could see that there were a lot of women that were fighting for the rights to vote, and and the men actually saw that as a threat, as a very, very big threat. And then are women allowed equal access to education? In a lot of countries, no. If you know Malala, in Pakistan, for a long time, they were fighting for girls to go to school. Equal access to healthcare, financial transaction, and property rights. yes, we will look more deeply into that in the next few slides. So the basis of discrimination. So you see in this photo, the woman is busy cleaning the house while the man is sitting on the sofa reading a newspaper. And we, in today's world, a lot of women are now working. A lot of families are now dual income. Dual income means both men and women are out working. But when it comes to working at home, taking care of children, keeping the house clean, not a lot has changed. According to some surveys, women actually take up three times more of the task compared to men. So women, even though they work outdoors, they still come home, and then that's called a second shift. Yeah. So even though they work outside the home, they come home, they have to do more work until they go to sleep lah. Even sleeping pun, I don't know, maybe still working. So these gender roles and expectations have started even before a baby is born. Like, why is it so important for people to know if you're having a boy or if you're having a girl, and then the colors, if you have a boy, you must give with blue. If you have a girl, it must be pink. Back a couple of centuries back, the color pink wasn't actually a girly color. People back then thought pink should be more of a boy color because it's strong, it looks, it seems more aggressive compared to blue. But nowadays it's switched because pink looks cuter, I guess. And gender roles and expectations is about what you expect a girl to behave like and what a boy is supposed to behave like. For some of my presentations or seminars I've done with men, we do something called like a man box. So in this man box, men are supposed to share what are the expectations of them as being a man. So you put it in this man box. So things like, being strong, being hardworking, being the, ketua keluarga. Ketua keluarga is in the man box. If you do not fulfill this man box, then you are given all kinds of names lah. Like if you're not a strong person, then maybe you're given very discriminatory or degrading words such as pondan lah. For women, for girls also, there's the expectation that if you're a girl, you'll be able to sit down quietly, be nice, know how to cook. And are we saying, this expectation is something that cannot be expected of the other gender, like men, boys. So if we say girls should be able to cook, does it mean boys cannot cook? Or if boys are strong, girls are supposed to be weak? But have you seen any examples of girls who are strong? I'm sure you have, kan? When it comes to talking about girls and being emotional, women, they're so emotional. But I wanted you to look at President Trump. Tell me that is not an emotional man right there. Because he is very, very emotional. You see, every time someone says something that he doesn't like, he will go on a very, very long rant on all his Twitter feeds. So what is gender actually? Gender is not biology, and it is actually social norms, symbols, and power structure that define our cultural expectation. Just like what I was mentioning earlier lah. So gender is about the expectation, what a woman or a girl should be and what a man or a boy should be. So you can look at this. You don't have to respond. You can look at this and then see which one is sex and which one is about gender. Like women can give birth, men cannot. Is that sex or is that gender? Or women should be gentle, men should be tough. Is that a sex thing or is that the gender thing? So around the world, women spend 2.5 more time on housework compared to men. Is that a gender issue? Or women can breastfeed their babies. Men can only feed their babies with a bottle. Is that sex or is that gender? And women are given a low pay than men for the same job. Or women are given mandatory maternity leave. Men do not get paternity leave at all. So the answers are here. Okay. So women can give birth, men cannot. That's a sex. That's not gender. So anything to do with your physical attributes that you were born with is sex. Like women can breastfeed their babies, men cannot. That's also a sex issue. But gender is, expectations. Like this, women should be gentle, men should be tough. Or the expectation that women should be doing housework. Or women should be given lower pay than men for the same job. Or the last one is something that's very important also. It's like, why are women allowed maternity leave? In Malaysia, we have 90 days, but men, they don't have it unless they work in the government, which has 7 days. And if they're working in the private sector, it's dependent on the company they work with. So what are we saying here is men, they're not supposed to be parents. They're not supposed to take care of the kids. So question 1, women account for how many percentage of the world's illiterate people, meaning people who cannot read, buta huruf. So 67% of the world's illiterate people are women. Yeah. So that's a very high number. Yeah. So why is this? So in many societies, girls' education is not seen as a priority. A lot of people, even in Malaysia, you can see that, like, if a girl is living in poverty, they don't see her having an education is important. They see marrying her off is a solution rather than giving her an education. So if you were to read Malala's book about Pakistan, and then Afghanistan, sorry, she was not able to go to school, and people were stopping them from going to school because they were citing religious reasons. It's like or they're saying like a woman's or a girl's contribution is only in terms of giving birth to kids or taking care of the home. So education takes a back seat. But luckily in Malaysia, we have reached almost parity. Both women and both girls and boys are going to school, at least until finish primary education. So according to UNESCO, if the current trends continue, about 15 million girls between the age of 6 and 10 will never set foot in a classroom, compared to about 10 million boys. So 5 million more girls are not able to go to school. If in Sabah, the issue would be statelessness. That's the reason why a lot of kids are not able to have a proper education. Yeah. And then question 2, at least one in how many women will experience some form of violence during their lifetime? This is a very popular statistic. I think it's published in a lot of places. At least 1 in 3 women will experience some form of violence during their lifetime. So that's how many people in this chat, in this room. There's 8, 9 people. So divide that by 3. So how many people would have experienced at least some form of violence? If it's not domestic violence, it's also sexual harassment. It's also, uh, you know, it's not just about domestic violence, but violence caused by people you are close with, family violence as well. Yeah. Oops, sorry. Yeah. So domestic violence, since we are looking into domestic violence, it's a lot of people I think that it's only about physical violence where you are bleeding, you're bruised. That's violence is the ones that should be reported to the police. But there are other forms of violence, it's like emotional abuse, shouting, threatening, psychological abuse, until to the point where someone does not feel safe anymore. That is domestic violence. Financial abuse, like husband refusing to give the wife money, or refusing the wife to work away from home. That's domestic violence. Social isolation, getting her away from her friends, her family, and also sexual abuse. In Malaysia, we don't recognize marital rape, and that is actually a very big issue. And because of the COVID-19 crisis, domestic abuse actually rises worldwide. In France, it increased by about 30%. Some places even more, maybe. The reason is because a lot of survivors are not able to leave the home. They're restricted from leaving. And in a normal setting, they would at least be able to spend some time away from the home, like going to work, going to the shops or something. But because of because of all these lockdowns around the world, women are not able to escape, or not just women, but all survivors. Men can also be subjected to domestic abuse. Yes, but because of all that, we see a lot more people calling up helplines. Yeah, so question 3, around how many million women alive today were married as children? So children as in 18 years and below. Okay. So the answer is 650 million women alive today were married as children. So it's very is something that's very hard to stop. For one thing, people use tradition or religion to justify why a lot of girls are being married off. I'm sure in Sabah we have a lot of cultural issues, and even though in the previous government we had talked about ending child marriages, the truth is in Sabah we haven't even gone to the point where we are changing the law. We only say yes, we agree that we don't want girls under the age of 18 to get married, but nothing has been done to change the law yet. So the reasons for child marriage is poverty, dowry, cultural traditions, laws that allow child marriage, just like in Malaysia, even though we agree no child marriage, but the law says something else. So there's still a loophole there. Religious and social pressure, regional customs. I've heard in Sabah you can betroth a baby. I think that's what I heard, that at a certain age, even as children, girls can be betrothed to someone else. Fear of child remaining unmarried until adulthood, or in Malaysia we say mengelakkan zina, so that they don't have premarital sex. Okay, so let's marry them off. Okay. So what are the risks if we allow children to get married? It increases girls' risk of death or complications during pregnancy. Pregnancy is not a really, it's not a light issue, not issue to be taken lightly. It's very dangerous. Uh, Especially in a developed country, you will see later that a lot is very high. Mortality for maternity related health problems is quite high. And then also because if you take a child out and get her married, it is unlikely that she will go back to school because she's expected to take care of the house. They're expected to have children, and because they are at the age that's very vulnerable, where you know girls get married off young because that's the age when they're still naive. They don't know how to answer, don't know how to answer back. Yeah, so that puts them at a greater risk of sexual, physical, and emotional violence because they don't know how to fight back. They don't know their rights. Okay. Okay, so about how many women die from pregnancy or childbirth related complications around the world every day? 830 women die from pregnancy. Yeah, so that's high, and most of these are happening in developing countries. Yes, 99% of maternal deaths happen in developing countries, and the reason is because a lot of women, they are not able to access uh, sexual health. Like I spoke to the Sabah Family Planning Association a couple of months ago, and they were saying that in order for a woman to be able to access things like contraceptives, they need to have the permission from their husbands. So a woman, she is unable to, if she goes for government services lah, she is not able to access contraceptives. She is not able to do family planning without the husband's consent. Although the reasons given is because they want to keep family relations healthy, or so that there's no pergaduhan lah antara laki sama bini. But how many of these services are focused towards men? It's like, how many of this really takes consideration about women's needs? What if the man forces the woman to get pregnant because of there are many reasons lah. Yeah. So women often have little or no control over their fertility and reproductive health, as well as inequities in access to health services. So the people who usually access government-funded health services are usually people on the low income bracket. Sorry. Compared to women who are in the higher income bracket, they are most likely to go for private healthcare, and they would be able to afford such healthcare. But we have to remember that there's a lot of people in the B40 group that will not be able to access fertility and reproductive health services. Okay, so question 5: adolescent girls and young women constitute how many percent of all young people living with HIV? Actually, it's very high. It's 61%. And well, sad to say, in Malaysia, which state has the highest number of HIV carriers is unfortunate to say, the religious states. And that is because a lot of the women, they get it is because of the partners, the men. And the men, they tend to have more than one sexual partner, which is easier for them to spread. So sadly, young women and girls aged 15 to 24 are like twice as likely to be at risk of HIV infection compared to boys and young men. And this is usually because of unwanted sexual activity like rape, yeah, even at home. So on average, women are paid how much less than men? It is 24% less than men. That is that high. Usually the excuses given are that they are, you know, they are going to take maternity leave. They, especially, there's a lot of job applications that ask if you're married, and if you're married, they're more likely to have kids. And if you're gonna be pregnant during your time at work, that means you'll be taking maternity leave. But men don't take paternity leave. So does that make a woman more expensive to hire? So women are actually overrepresented in informal and vulnerable employment. Vulnerable employment, like say in the case of COVID-19 lah, a lot of women are unable to go to work, or they work part-time, or they like Makcik Kia, as our Prime Minister says, she goes and sells pisang goreng. But during this time MCO, will she be able to have that income? Probably very, very less, much, much less, because no one's going out to buy pisang goreng because you need foot traffic to get there. And women also bear disproportionate responsibility for unpaid care in domestic work. What it means is a lot of, like we mentioned earlier, that a lot of women are expected to take care of the children, the elderly, and then also to take care of the house. And like mentioned, 2.5% more, women are expected to take care of all these unpaid responsibilities. So if they're focusing on all these unpaid things, what happens to their career? You only have 24 hours in a day. Both men and women, we only have 24 hours in a day. If you focus a lot on things that are unpaid, you're not going to be able to focus on building your career. Okay, this one I found really, really fun. In how many countries women are not allowed to do same jobs as men? You'll be very surprised to know that 100 countries, there are 100 countries where women are not allowed to do the same jobs as men. And do you know what? It includes Malaysia. So at least 155 countries have at least one law that means women have fewer economic rights than men, including 18 countries where husbands can legally prevent their wives from working. Yeah, so I'm sure you're thinking like Saudi Arabia, those sort of countries. But here is what what is the current situation. Like, okay, so in Malaysia, you're not allowed to, as a woman, you cannot be employed to transport goods and passengers by road, rail, water, or air at night. So I'm not sure if that means that you cannot be a pilot and fly at night. There is actually a law about that. And then in Moldova, you cannot drive buses with more than 14 seats. In Russia, you cannot drive trains and 45. There's so many restrictions for women in Russia. Yeah, so isn't that interesting? I find it really, really interesting. Okay, question 8. Only how many percent of all national parliamentarians are women? Okay, you don't need to look at Malaysia, you look at globally. Globally, there's 24%. Even though we see a lot more women presidents, a lot more women prime ministers, it's still 24%. Yeah, and the problem is because of society rules. And I don't know if you ever noticed that women in politics or women with high status, they usually get more, they get harsher comments, especially about their looks, about how they behave. and things that are not normally, given to men. And for example, like Hanayo posting a photo of her when she was the minister, assistant minister for women's affairs. And the comment was, why don't you wear lipstick? Because you look good. And you would never see that sort of comment for men. So these are some of the portfolios held by women ministers all over the world in 188 countries. As you can see, women ministers are usually given, more social issues like family, social affairs, environment, all the softer skills, I would say, are given to women. So when it comes to defense, yeah, defense is pretty low down there. Yeah. So this is just an idea about what sort of portfolios are held by women ministers. Okay, out of 500 largest corporations in the world, how many percentage have a female CEO? It's actually 5% only. Yeah, so this is something I got from online from catalyst.org. As you can see, CEOs are 5.8%. Even though employees, when it comes to employees in a company, there's about almost 50% are women. But as you go higher up the pyramid, you see less and less women. Okay, and question 10, women own less than how many percentage of the world's land? And 20% actually. And this is mostly happening in places like India, and mostly Asian countries, where we still have a lot of customs and traditions that do not allow women to own land, even though they are mostly the people who are working in producing agriculture supply. So according to Kofi Annan, gender equality is more than a goal. It's not just about talking about men must be equal to women. It's all about, a precondition to meet the challenge of reducing poverty, promoting sustainable development, and building good governance. So if the world is 50-50, as we saw in the fact earlier, why is 50% the females not providing their input? Why is it we only get less than 30% of women in representing representing the people? So gender equality in Malaysia is is we are still very, very low. So there's something called the Gender Gap Index, which is published by the World Economic Forum every year, and we are somewhere at the bottom. Even though we're still better than, let's say, China or Saudi Arabia, obviously, we are still 104th placing. So why is that? Because only 20.4% of women Malaysian women hold senior roles in the workforce. If you can look at the score, you would see that educational attainment is high. Means we have reached equality in that sector. Like a lot more women are now in universities, or sometimes they even exceed the number of men in universities. But somehow that does not translate into our workforce. And also health and survival, we are quite good. We are very, very good when it comes to health and survival in Malaysia, except for those things that I mentioned, which is access to sexual health services. And political empowerment is low, very, very low. And we're going to look at that. Okay, so I don't know about you, but did you see the recent cabinet? Yeah, the cabinet was pretty full of men. So there are far fewer women than men in parliament. So according to CEDAW, there should be at least 30% for what they call to make a difference lah, so that women have more of a say in parliament. You need at least 30%, but that's not happening. So if you were look at the new Malaysian cabinet, there's only about 15% of the full ministers that are women. Even if you include the assistant ministers, still not 15% even, very, very low. The previous government, the PH government, was slightly better, but still not even close to 30%. I mean, at least you could see more women. For this one, yeah, no. So this is something that we did in the last election. We wanted to see, because if in parliament, you already see so few, but even from before, from the number of women actually participating in politics is pretty low. So in Sabah, you can see that in parliament for Sabah, less than 20 women were actually standing up for election. For the state level, less than 50%. I think it was even like 40 or something. 40 women that went up for positions. So 23 out of 66 seats have women candidates. That's how many women actually won during the last election. So when it comes to actual proportion of women candidates, there was only 11.6%, which is sad. Why aren't there more women in politics? Another thing is that Malaysia has among the lowest rate of female labor participation, with less than 55% of women in formal occupations. So the reason for this is, again, because they're expected to take care of kids. A lot of women, they drop out because of childcare, and also care of the elderly. And then once they leave the workforce, they don't come back. They basically, they already, what do you call that? Can't even remember the word. They retire, sorry. So it's pretty low. I mean, although there are some industries that have more women than men, but it's still pretty low. 55% is of women of working age that are not working. And then also another issue, paternity leave. I don't know why we're not having it. We were supposed to have the proposal tabled during the current parliament sitting, but that's not going to happen because we're not going to have a parliament until the end of MCO. Okay, so it was proposed 3 days for the private sector, 7 days for civil servants, but even then, the Malaysian Employers Federation did not like that suggestion. If you compare to Philippines, they have at least 7 days. Vietnam, less than 5 days. Brunei doesn't have any. Cambodia has none. And in Singapore, they had 2 weeks. 2 weeks of paternity leave plus 4 weeks from the mother. So if you want to be a more developed country, don't you think that we should be considering this paternity leave? Because if we don't have paternity leave, it's like we're assuming that, we're still assuming that the workforce is mainly men. It's a workforce that, a workplace that is made only for men who are also sole breadwinners. Okay, this one I'm not sure many of you know, but if you are a Malaysian mother and you get married to a foreign foreign man. If you give birth to your children outside the country, there's no it's not you are not guaranteed that your children will be Malaysian citizens. So uh, because if you go to the embassy, they will ask where's the father, or they will look at the father's nationality. And it's happened to friends of mine who live in the US, even though both husband and wife are Malaysians and they gave birth to a child in the US. The mother cannot register for the child as a Malaysian. The father has to go. So that is ridiculous. And surprisingly, we are not the only ones. Malaysia, Brunei are the countries that limit women's ability to pass citizenship to their children. And together with all these Arabian countries, surprisingly, also some African countries. So where is how developed are we? And this was just before all COVID-19 happened. Violence against women is underreported or misreported. So even though there is violence against women, a lot of people refuse to, or really reluctant to report it because because of they're afraid of being stigmatized. So violence against women, as long as we believe that men are the ketua keluarga, or men they're allowed to hit women if women don't you know are not obedient. And sadly we often link this with religious beliefs, and that's why violence against women is pretty high, especially in Asia. So domestic violence rates in Malaysia increased under the MCO. I think a lot of you heard about this. And how does our Minister of Women respond? Talk like Doraemon. That's how that's um how do we feel that our women ministry is actually not up to par when it comes to solving problems. Because if you've seen throughout this presentation, there were so many things that our Ministry of Women Affairs could actually do. There's so many things, so many topics that we are still far behind, but they choose this sort of solution. So far, what does anyone have any thoughts about this? If you wish to talk, you can raise your hand or you can type in the chat box. Anyone? Still awake? Hello? Yeah, so many things that need to be addressed actually, even though we tend to focus a lot on violence against women, but there are some organizations also working on the citizenship thing, because they want the children to have Malaysian citizenship, but they're unable to. What do you think could be the basic things that the ministry can tackle to start? For one thing, they could change their what is it? They need to change the way that they talk about things, because at the moment it sounds a lot like they think that family issues are women issues when it's not. Yeah, glad that we're better than China in something about inequality. Yeah. But in China, I think they actually started. There were a few activists in China when COVID-19 started, because they also felt there was a high number of domestic violence issues. they actually did something. I think you can actually Google that. Like ministry, well, one of the things the ministry can start maybe is about access of sexual reproductive health for women, because I'm sure because of religious reasons, we want to assume that all women are only having sex within a marriage, but that's not true. I think we should stop thinking in terms of ideals and actually see what's really happening. Yeah. How can we educate our generation and next generation about gender equality? I guess I mean, a lot of people still don't understand what gender equality is or is not. They still think about it as in terms of men being equal to women, which is not right. It's about the rights should be the same. When it says, one of the basic human rights is about freedom of expression, but I don't know if women have freedom of expression even at home, because even based on our ministry telling us to speak in Doraemon voice, and then not to say things that are hurtful for the husband, isn't that already a restriction of freedom of expression? Okay, so let's move on. Okay, SDG 5. So you might be interested to know about this. I'm sure you've heard of the global goals. There's about 17 global goals. And these global goals just means that there are so many things that we need to still achieve within 15 years. And this has started since how many years already? 5 years. 5 years already on this global goals. And we are nowhere near achieving. So gender equality is just one thing of it, one of the one of the goals that the United Nations wants to achieve. Like I mentioned earlier, we had CEDAW in addition to the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, because people don't see women as human beings or equal to men, so that we need a separate set of laws, to say women should deserve these rights as well. And there are many targets when it comes to the goal number 5. So there's end discrimination against women and girls, and all violence, including child marriages, including human trafficking, and then eliminating forced marriages and genital mutilation. I think some parts of Malaysia, they still do practice genital mutilation, when it comes to female genital mutilation, because they said it's religion or tradition, and value unpaid care. So women, because we always see women as homemakers, as not providing economically, that is not right, because they are, even though they're not paid, but they're actually doing a service for the economy, and that's something that we should recognize. Full participation of leadership and decision making, lah kan, we don't even have 30%, we only have 15% of women in parliament. So sad. Universal access to reproductive health. So all these issues are things that we can focus on. When we say we want to achieve gender equality, it's best if you can focus on something, like even promoting women through empowerment of women through technology is a target. So for us, for SERATA, one of our main focus is actually about valuing unpaid care and promote shared domestic responsibilities, which is promoting fathers, promoting fathers to be more active in the raising of their kids. It's also about promoting men who do more do more work at home. Taking care of household responsibilities. Yeah. And we are part of MenCare. MenCare is a global fatherhood campaign. There's about 50 countries, NGOs from 50 countries that are a part of this campaign. So their commitment is to get 50% men to take up 50% of the unpaid care work. So, and we will start with 50 minutes more care work per day. So, seeing that you have so many what target, if you could choose lah kan, which is the target that you would like to focus more on? Like JCI Intan, what is the target you would like to work on? Empowering women through technology. Yeah, I think Adelina, that would be the most probably the best for you, because you know more about technology than a lot of women. What else? Wow, we have 8 minutes more. Or we could go more, I don't know. Yeah, so yeah, have a think about it, because there are so many targets you can be working on. And I think a lot of times people tend to think gender equality as a goal, as a, overall, without actually focusing on something. And yeah, 5 goal, target 5. Okay, let's see. Yeah, target 5. Yeah, I mean, I think it has to start there as well, getting more women to be representatives. We have more women in politics. I think one of the big issues is that why do we need a women's wing for a political party? Why can't they be part of the overall political party? I don't think that's something that's being practiced in, like New Zealand or Australia or UK, US. Do you have a women's wing? Huh? And then when you have a women's wing in a political party, what is their role? Their role is usually very administrative, like doing campaigning, doing I don't know lah, hantar bantuan ka. And it's already there. Already there, you can see that women are seen as different, not equivalent to men in politics. Yeah, program bubur lambuk. Yes, exactly. So I think we should have political parties that do not have this, youth wing lah, women wing lah. Yeah, yeah. So okay, so we have only a few minutes left, but we just continue. So COVID-19, because of COVID-19, I think gender equality has sort of slowed down or even going backwards, because one thing during the MCO already kena bilang ketua keluarga only can go and buy things, and then when people say ketua keluarga, they immediately think, oh, it must be a man. Luckily, I do not see that happening in Sabah, only in West Malaysia, that we have all these ads coming, oh lelaki, kalau kamu mau beli sayur, beginilah, ini sayur ini sayur itu ikan ini. And that's so stereotypical, because I know a lot of men who cook, actually. Yeah. And there's an increase in domestic violence. We saw increase in caring responsibility. Children are staying home, and then who's taking care of the kids when they're home? And women are able to take a break unless their husbands are more, hands-on with the kids lah. But suddenly there's less help. You cannot send your children to daycare to take care of the kids for a while. You cannot even send your kids to your relatives, your grandparents pun tidak boleh. So women who work from home have to juggle more as a result of COVID-19. And then there's women who work part-time or informal, like I said lah, macam Mak Cik Kia tu, she is unable to sell her pos pisang goreng. So you have to go on different platforms in order to do more sales. And strangely, if you ever notice, even though women and men are contracting the virus, more men are dying. Kan? There's a higher number of men actually dying from COVID-19. I don't know, maybe it's because they have a tendency to engage in more risky health behaviors like smoking lah. Yeah, like it's like, oh, saya lelaki bah, tidak payah takut. Oh, maybe that's one of the reasons, because we are quite stereotypical in our beliefs. And I think for me, businesses are now post COVID-19, they're focusing more on survivability. They're going to focus more on cutting costs. And I think one of the things is they're not going to be focusing on employee welfare. So if you're going to talk about things like paternity leave, maternity leave, having more childcare facilities in the workplace, I think a lot of businesses will not be happy. A lot of businesses will think that's secondary to making more profit. Yeah. So what are your thoughts about COVID-19 and gender equality? Yeah, women have to handle housework, cooking, children, and try to do work. Yeah, for majority of households, unless there's more men who like to cook, then yeah. Actually, during MCO, we can see the true colors of Malaysia's understanding in GE, gender equality. Yeah, yep. Like especially our ministry, I don't know why do they think that it's the responsibility of women to control the way they behave or control the way they look in order to stop violence against women. Yeah. Okay, that's okay. So to wrap it up, according back again to what the World Economic Forum has said, that the gap between men and women measured in terms of political influence, economic gain, and health and education has narrowed over the last year. But we still need about a century for gender equality to actually, gender inequality to finally disappear. Yeah. So do we really want to wait for a whole century for people to finally close the gap between genders? It can if everyone starts behaving that achieving gender equality is actually everyone's responsibility. Yeah. So as long as we think it's a women's issue, it's not going to solve itself. As long as we think that gender equality is only about women empowerment, it's not going to solve itself. We have to work hand in hand with men and women both, or male and female both. Yeah, so do you have any Q&As before we end our session today? I hope you enjoyed my talking and ranting, and it's not too too yeah, sure. I think they misinterpreted the message they found online about working from home. Is a tip to dress up as if you're going to a physical office outside home to create a psychological impact and increase productivity. the posters and copy were badly worded. Yeah, I agree. It's also badly timed as well, I think. Because the Ministry of Women's Affairs is not supposed to be, like a women's magazine. That would be perfect for women's magazine, but for women's affairs, it should be focusing more on something that's concrete, and I don't think we can compare working from home during MCO as the same as normal days, because there's so many more things that are different when working from home because of MCO. Yeah, it's because we have to take care of the kids as well. It's like, siapa lah mau cakap pakai makeup sekarang ni, like sudahlah stress. How to get more women into politics? I find political participation kita kurang because of the women's interest and choice themselves, not necessarily systemic. Correct me if I'm wrong. Could be also lah, because a lot, maybe women don't really like to be in the forefront, or sometimes again back to the responsibilities that women hold in the home sometimes makes it more difficult for them to go out there and be politically more active. I think also it has to do with our stereotypes lah, that women are not supposed to be so outspoken, kan. Ministry need to upgrade lah. Yeah, but for I mean, the previous women ministry in the past government, I mean, they weren't perfect lah. They weren't perfect. They didn't do everything that we hoped they would do, but at least it was progressive. And then for almost 2 years, we were relaxing. It's like, it's not so stressful. And then suddenly this new government come in, like, terus jadi gila. Yeah, some women prefer the housewife role. Yeah, there's nothing wrong with wanting to be housewives. It's a choice, and women should be free to make that choice lah. But women should be able to have the choice to also work outside, and that's something that is macam more obstacle lah. Yeah, should more. Yeah, but actually, I wanted more men to join the seminar. I thought I would have a few more men, but they did not turn up. So I don't know what shall we do. Shall we do it on Facebook Live? The equality is about women.
Hi, Seb.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Saya belum suruh panggil kau buat speech pula.
Oh, it's okay. It's okay. I just, but thank you for doing this. Very informative. Hi, everyone.
Yeah.
Just my thoughts lah kan. What can we do? Because I think in Sabah we have a lot of women association. Bahkan we have SWEPA, we have SAWO and SERATA, and then not exactly all women lah. Tidak semestinya, but there's a lot of organization that's also like fight for women rights and now the gender equality. What do you think we can do as a group in Sabah? At least maybe we start somewhere lah, maybe in Sabah ka. I think first thing first is the awareness, because like you said, most people they don't understand gender equality, but all they thought is ya perempuan ni mau sama dengan laki, like we want to be the same all the time. We just want our right kan to be heard what we want. So what do you think we can do, like together? Like this is one thing we can do lah, the webinar kan. But to approach more people, especially those in rural area, because this gender equality kita cakap banyak di bandar, but in kampung we really heard about apa itu gender equality. Macam mana kita mau kasih tahu orang kampung?
I
That's what I'm concerned lah.
I know Sawo macam a couple of years ago they did some programs lah yang went into rural areas, and then it was about teaching men, I think it was men apalah macam trying to get men to be more aware about gender equality, and then that's how they reduce domestic violence. Bukan senang juga. So because I was part of that as well, because we got a lot of men down to KK to join our program, but I think the mindset shift kan lama, actually lama, and then I think we need to focus on the younger generation. Kalau older generation we want to focus macam susah sikit, sudah cannot teach old dogs new trick. So it's better to teach young boys. Yes, yes. Yeah, I was also considering kind the next thing that we could do is do something FB live. We can do a panel session and especially include men lah in the conversation. Kalau perempuan bercakap macam lelaki terdengar ni.
That's why I think if we have like balance
Yeah.
kan webinar, like we have from both sides, like women and men also talk about what they understand about GE. So I
Hmm.
think we can invite more men to our
Yeah,
session.
yeah.
Kan? Yeah.
Boleh bah. Yeah. Okay. Kalau no, sorry. Kalau tiada lagi, can have open discussion or forum. Yeah. Because the other day I saw this it's new to me lah. The Be Live app kan macam saya pun interested ni. Yeah, so educate we can do. Ignite interest. Ignite interest in young generation. How? Yeah, I know. Because I think people they see only what's in front of them, and when we talk about gender equality, they will say things like, but sudah bah, ada ini siapa-siapa sudah," so they don't see beyond what they see directly in front of them. Yeah. So Jean, do you want to do a closing remarks since you are President Jesia Intan? Now see, you can see Robert doing housework and good job, Robert. Mana sudah si Jean? Jean. Okay lah. So I think, yeah, I was hoping to get Jean to do closing remark, tapi macam datang mana saja. So anyway, thank you all for spending Sunday, and then also happy Easter to those who are celebrating. I hope everyone is doing well this MCO. For me, macam kebiasaan sudah suddenly kan. I feel like, I'm getting used to it. Yeah, thank you all. Yeah, thank you, Adelina. Yeah, hope that everyone benefited from this session, and you understand a bit more lah what is gender equality about, and then what we really need to do lah. Yeah. Yeah, thanks Del. Thanks Suri. Okay, thank you Anna. All right. I think I did record something, so I will post it whatever I've got lah. Huh? All right, bye.